Hey everybody, Plushy here. I know quite a bit of people are disappointed that we didn't immediately get Oberon out of the release of the final part of Lost Boat 6, but fret not, we have another very impressive servant that is available for everyone for free, which is Habetrot that you can immediately get after beating the final part of Lost Boat 6. And Habetrot, in my opinion, has been one of the best additions into the game. She's borderline a quality of life update since she is accessible to everyone, and she just makes so many things so easy, and I want to talk a little bit about why that is the case. So without further ado, let's get into today's topic, Habetrot. Habetrot's first skill is a 2000 HP heal, and it also grants the target a 1-turn debuff immunity as well as a 1-turn 100% star generation boost, all on a 3-turn cooldown. So this is a pretty insane supportive skill, especially against bosses that like to spam debuffs. This happens very often, every 3 turns. Over time, this is a lot of heal, even if we ignore the other 2 effects. And obviously, the debuff immunity for a whole turn, which is pretty important. It can block off as many debuffs as possible in a singular turn. So bosses like Sir Nunos or a full gauge Kama, where they tend to debuff you like a million times in a single turn, this is a super powerful skill, and the fact that you can use it every 3 turns is just icing on the cake. And the star generation boost is obviously, it depends on who you use it on. Sometimes it can be completely useless, sometimes it can be pretty significant, but you know what, even if we remove that effect, this is already a super solid skill. Habetrot's second skill is a 30% arts up for 3 turns, as well as a 80 MP battery, and also it has a small demerit of dealing 2000 HP to herself without killing her. So this is the main reason why she is used so much in farming these days in JP. She is the go-to QP door farmer, and you can kind of treat her as a 4-star Arash that has instant access to a K-scope as well as a 30% arts boost to boost her already pretty high MP damage. So because her skill 3 kills her off, spoiler alert. So this is obviously really powerful. You can use her as a generic arts looper and she performed very well, and you can also easily fit her into multi-core farming because she doesn't really need any CE that has starting charge due to this skill. So overall, super flexible, makes her one of the best farmers in the game, even outclassing many of the 5 stars or limited 4 stars just because of how big this battery is. Habetrot's third skill is one of the most unique in the entire game. It only works on females, and it grants the target a 1-turn invincibility, a 1-time 5-turn guts that revives them with a whopping 5000 HP, a passive heal per turn for 5 turns that heals the target by 2000 every single turn, and it clears the target's ailment debuffs, which is burn, curse, and poison, and finally, as a demerit, Habetrot kills herself after using this skill on the following turn. So yeah, this skill single-handedly made Habetrot one of the best utility tools in the entire game. I did say this only works on females, but you can certainly use it on a male. None of the buffs will happen, but Habetrot will still die on the following turn. And as you've known, dying in this game is not necessarily a demerit. A lot of the times you simply want a servant to rotate out after they have cleared a wave, especially in farming, for another buffer to come in to buff your other damage dealer. Habetrot is essentially the 4-star version of Arash with a bigger starting charge with her massive 80 MP battery, and as long as you can fit her into a composition, because she does have a higher cost as a 4-star, she's just a straight upgrade of Arash. And Arash is still relevant in certain 90++ nodes in very recent memory just because of how good, killing themselves after using their MP is in farming. So yeah, Habetrot, one of the best farmers in the game because of this skill as well. But on the flip side, this skill is also one of the most powerful skills for soloing. This made female servants just straight up better solo servants than males because their access to Habetrot. Very often I use double Habetrot on a singular female when I do a solo if I have trouble clearing it. Now most of these effects don't stack, but the heal per turn effect does stack, so what you end up with is a female servant that starts out with a single turn of invul that will revive with 5000 HP if they die within 5 turns, and gains a passive 4000 heal per turn for 5 turns, which is a 20,000 heal across 5 turns, which is kind of insane if you think about it. And finally, it does clear ailment debuffs, but usually that is not too significant. Pair that up with her first skill, giving them a single turn of debuff immunity, that makes a female servant when they're soloing start out basically untouchable, undebuffable, and has massive heals per turn for 5 turns, and finally when they die they revive with a very massive amount of HP, which is 5,000, and if they die within 5 turns, the heal per turn will further heal them up after the guts proc. So after the guts proc they will basically start with 9,000 HP instead of 5,000 if you use double Habetrot. So overall, yeah, this is a insane skill. It enables so many ridiculous stuff to happen. It super buffs a female ally, and it also allows her to cycle up another buffer after she has expended all her value. Unfortunately, none of Habetrot's passive really do anything for her, so I will leave them out of the discussion for now. And finally, her MP is a AoE 3-hit arts MP that gives herself a 30% MP damage up before damage, which is a huge damage boost, and also it deals damage that ignores defense, and it has the demerit of reducing her own star absorption rate by 100% for 3 turns. Or is it the demerit? Because her overcharge effect is a star bomb effect that generates 20 stars to 40 stars depending on overcharge level. So yeah, once again, this is a really good farming MP, mostly because of her skills, but also because of the 30% MP damage up before it actually does damage. It is quite a good damaging MP despite her relatively low attack stat, and because she is also free MP5 since she is a free friend point gacha servant. And this MP is also a decent utility tool if you want to use her as a support, because it can generate 20 stars, and she even has this demerit to guarantee herself from not stealing your stars from the main damage dealer. But of course, Habetrot also has the option to kill herself off after a singular turn, so you can really start strong by using all of Habetrot's effect on the first turn. You can use the buff on her skill 3 and the debuff immunity on her skill 1, and finally you can easily fire off her MP for free since she doesn't need any starting charge. You can just max out her append 2. She doesn't need to bring any specific CE. You can even bring CEs that give on death buffs, such as the CE that gives MP charge on death, or CEs that give quick buff on death on her to further buff your main damage dealer, and after using an MP she can just generate a bunch of stars for the following turn for your damage dealer. So overall, super solid MP as well, good damage, good utility, just really fits her very well. Since Habetrot really isn't a new servant, I don't have a lot to add regarding my impressions on her, so instead I will elaborate on the different ways that you can use Habetrot. So first of all, in terms of farming, I highly recommend maxing out her append 2 as well as her skill 2. With both of these effects maxed, she can immediately fire off her MP without the help of any initial starting charge, which gives her the flexibility to either run Black Rail for damage or run a Bond boost CE or a QP boost CE for maximized drop bonus. If you are in an event that doesn't have a starting charge event CE, this is also extremely useful, and she can also very easily fire off her MP multiple times if you do have an event with a starting charge CE, even when you aren't bringing a full-on arts looping team and is just including her in a multi-core farming team because of the 80 MP battery once again. Habetrot can also provide your team with critical stars if you do want to include some kind of crit element, which is kind of common in 90++ farming these days because of that overcharge effect. In terms of support, there are two main situations that you will be using Habetrot in. First of all, the more common one, which is solos. I have already brought up all the reasons why I think Habetrot is so broken for female solos. I still really like double Habetrot, even though most of the effects are wasted. I just think, having 4,000 passive heal for 5 turns is just so broken. Do note that this also doesn't stack well with George's Bond CE, since George's Bond CE has a invul effect, and if you do use Habetrot and taunt George, George's Bond CE doesn't actually apply the invul over Habetrot's invul, so instead it will just have a damage cut effect. Yet another incentive to run double Habetrot. And if you do want to go full on cheating, you can actually use double Habetrot's MP, because once again, remember, they don't need any starting charge to fire off their MP, and you can actually start with 40 stars on the following turn for your solo servant because of their MP overcharge effect. Actually, no, it's more than 40 stars, because if you do double Habetrot's MP, the second Habetrot is going to be overcharged. So it's like 45 stars on the following turn. So yeah, there are a lot of ways to to cheese solos now if you are a female servant because of Habetrot alone, and that is just such a fun, effect that I really personally enjoy, even though most people don't really care about solos. Very unfortunately though, this do not buff genderless servants, and one of my favorite solo units is obviously Tyra, and it's quite sad every time that I realize, you can't really use Habetrot with Tyra. But even when you are using a non-female servant, you can still use Habetrot for a solo fodder for her first skill effect. If there is a boss that will give you very devastating debuffs upon entry, you can still use Habetrot's skill 1. That does apply to all genders, and she will die off on the following turn. She will feel very much like a level 1 esports BB, which a lot of people do use in solos just to block off that initial turn of debuff. So yeah, super good solo support even when she's not buffing females. However, killing her off immediately isn't actually necessarily the only way you can use her as a support, considering her first skill having a very short cooldown and her MP being a continuous star supplier. Keeping her around might be a better idea rather than immediately killing her off. When she finally runs out of health, then you can actually use her skill 3 and sacrifice her and then buff another ally. Even if your main damage dealer on your team is a male, you can use her skill 3 on a support such as Castoria, and then you don't have to worry about Castoria survival for the following 5 turns. So overall, Habetrot is a extremely easy unit to include into your team, and also you will basically never not get any value out of her. Overall, one of the most interesting and solid defensive / heal supports you can get in the game. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm so glad I finally made a hot take video where I don't have to recommend you whether to pull for the character or not, considering she is a free friend point welfare gacha servant. And obviously I do recommend you to get her to MP5 because she is one of the best 4-star servants in the game, period. Good luck for pulling for Habetrot in the friend point gacha, and I hope you all enjoyed the final part of Lost Belt 6.